Hi, it's Ryan Charles with ALCOVA Mortgage in Midlothian. So today's topic isn't directly related to real estate, but I will tie it into the mortgage industry a little bit at the end, so stick with me. I found an article that supported what I wanted to talk about. It's linked below, so if you want to read the article for yourself, it's there. I was having a conversation with a friend yesterday, in fact, and I was trying to describe why it's better to use a credit card versus a debit card. Then I stumbled across this article. Did you know that millennials prefer debit cards to credit cards by a ratio of almost 2 to 1? And then to quote this article, said this isn't surprising considering this generation had a front row seat to the debt-fueled financial crisis, and many of them are already burdened with serious student loans. So there is risk of using credit versus debit. Yes, if you don't pay it off, yes, you're going to have interest. But there are a lot of advantages to using credit. Now I'm going to go into a few of these, so stick with me here. This might be something you don't know. First of all, it's kind of obvious, but there's rewards with credit cards. So if you use those, they can add up. Like the one I use the most is an Amazon card. I do a lot of shopping on Amazon, and I get anywhere from 1 to 3%. And then the key is paying off each month. So as long as you're diligent enough to do that, it's an easy way to pocket 1 to 3% cash back on all your purchases. But then a few more things that aren't quite as obvious. Credit cards provide better safeguards against theft. So credit cards are protected by the Truth in Lending Act, a federal statute that limits consumer liability to no more than $50, and most banks aren't going to hold you liable for any charges. Debit cards, on the other hand, are covered under the Electronic Funds Transfer Act, which limits your liability to different amounts based on when you report the card missing. If you do it within 2 days of the fraudulent charges, your liability is limited to the same as the credit card purchase is $50. If you report it 3 days later, your liability balloons to $500. Past 60 days, and you can be liable for the entire amount. So credit cards don't have any of that time frame associated with it, mainly because it's not your money. Debit, the second you run that debit card, they're taking that money out of your account. Some people like that. I don't want to spend money I don't have. But in instances where there's fraudulent charges, credit can be much more helpful to protect you. So for instance, again quoting this, if a thief wipes out your checking account, you have no cash to pay rent, bills, or anything else until the bank clears up the theft and gives you your money back. You could also be liable for any overdraft fees triggered by the theft. Plus that however long it takes the bank to clear up the theft, it can be significant time. All right, another item. Lost or stolen card is faster. On a credit card, a lot of times they'll overnight it to you. On a debit card, like this article quotes, it can take up to 2 weeks to get you that card. Touch on this a little earlier. Power to dispute charges. If you have a credit charge, again, it's not your money, you haven't made the payment yet, you can enlist the credit company to help you argue the charge, which, by the way, probably has a lot more experience arguing that charge directly with the vendor or manufacturer. So in other words, you call whoever it is that you purchased something you're not happy about directly, you may get no traction. Visa calls them, they might get a lot of traction. Let's see what else here. There's a lot of other things. I'll keep it brief, but read the article. Travel is easier. Rental companies, car rental companies, they're not debit card friendly. This quotes, at some chains, including Enterprise, which is one of the biggest ones, the official policy is you cannot reserve a car with a debit card. Who knows? I didn't know that until I read this article. Last but not least, and I told you I was going to tie it into real estate, debit does not build any kind of credit. So it doesn't matter how much you use a debit card, it's not doing anything for your credit history. Credit cards, on the other hand, do wonders for your credit history and also your credit score. And again, this article was headed toward millennials. So talking about trying to get a mortgage one day, using debit, it does nothing for you. So if you have the diligence to use a credit card responsibly, there's a lot of reasons, as we talked about here, and Google it for yourself. You won't believe it. And like me, you may never use a debit card ever again. Thanks for listening. Until next week, catch you later.